All right, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, college football is in full effect, except it's not. It's over, and we're a little bit sad about it, but we're also way too early predicting where some of our ACC teams may land in the AP Top 25. We got AJ Black locked on Boston College here. He's going to go over that with us today. Why should NC State feel like the curse is broken? Let's talk about it.
Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are available wherever you listen to podcasts. AJ Black, Locked On Boston College in the building. Today's episode is brought to you by NetSuite. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. Head to netsuite.com/LockedOnNCAA for special end-of-year financing on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. AJ, Happy New Year. I hope you've had a great start to the January season. It's been good for me. So how's it been for you?
It's been great. What I've been getting into is women's basketball. Boston College been playing really well. Joanna McNamee's got that team clicking. They beat Clemson on Sunday. Cam Schwartz, their guard, scored 39 points, tied the school high.
Walking bucket.
Yeah, she's good. And so I love watching. I get behind that team when they start playing really well. And I'm not saying I'm bandwagon, but I think they get a lot of momentum. And so I've been really getting into that team recently. So it's been fun.
There's nothing wrong with loving on your team, one, but two, finding a new sport. I think that's fun. I mean, Boston College, hell, they have a great field hockey team, lacrosse team. They random teams that you just be like, listen, we'll just go ahead and join. But I'm glad to, always pump up some women's sports. But last night, as much of you guys know, there was a great basketball. Here we go. Gosh, Candace. See, my intro was so good, but it's okay. It was my birthday. I was feeling good, and I was watching a little football game. It was a little football game, but it was also a way to celebrate. So we had Alabama face Georgia. The Georgia Bulldogs came out on top, and it ended up being a lopsided victory, 33-18. Shout out to the under. I had Georgia -7. I was feeling good about myself on BetOnline. Normally I'm the one every time I try and go left, they're like, "Girl, please." And I just knew by betting on Georgia, Alabama was going to dog walk them, but that was not the case, and I was very excited about that. What were your thoughts on the game, AJ?
So if we're talking some BetOnline talk here, earlier this year, before the season started, I threw some money down on a variety of different things. I bet on NC State on BetOnline at 6.5 wins and nailed that one. Ooh. And then I put $10 down on Georgia to win it all. So I came out pretty nicely yesterday. I also got something else fun waiting on for me, which is Jamar Chase winning Rookie of the Year, which I should be unlocked on bets. I mean, I'm killing it.
Listen,
right now
your boy
with my
Q,
long-term stuff.
Your boy Q, Lee Sterling, if you're listening, Locked On Bets, we have a co-host that is ready and willing because I got to get some tips from you. I'm over here just willy-nilly. I need to be more.
I'm telling you, the over-under stuff though, for like day-to-day stuff, I'm terrible. So don't listen to me on that stuff. But like the long-term stuff, I was doing good. I watched the whole game last night. I'll watch any big college football game, and because it's days like today where I'm like, man, I miss it.
Yeah.
But to watch two teams, I know they're not ACC teams, but to watch two teams that are really good play is always entertaining. And Georgia's defense was a buzzsaw last night.
Insane.
Like the amount of depth that they have on that defensive line, they were just like rolling out like 5 or 6 NFL guys over and over and over again. And like, it was impressive to see that. It was also really impressive to see Kirby Smart adjust from the SEC championship game, because I watched that one too, and they got smoked. And I was like, going into this game, I'm going, oh man, I'm not feeling good about this, because they looked really bad. And I know Georgia has this whole horrid history of, failing in big games against Alabama, and they're
wetting the bed. Yes.
And they have a walk-on quarterback, and I'm going, what are they doing? And they come out looking like garbage, but Kirby Smart did what he needed to do, and he won that game. I had a lot of fun watching it. I'm always a big fan of Uga the Bulldog too. And there was some great video of him,
So
half
cute.
falling asleep. The big fat bulldog. I follow on Twitter Ugga the bulldog, Butler Blue, and Griff from the University of Drake, who's my favorite of the three bulldogs because he's the cutest little thing. But I'm gonna get one of those. I'm gonna get a bulldog of my own.
I was about to say, do you have a bulldog? It might be time.
I have a dog that is a rescue from Georgia who we got her from Georgia. So she's not a bulldog, but she's got a little bit in her. So
yeah, there you go.
But she's also a complete spaz, so I can't get another dog right now. But I will be getting a bulldog at some point. But we're talking about college football, and I'm talking about dogs.
No, dog content will probably, go through the roof. So if I cut a clip now, we would have the most views ever. So don't worry about it.
But there were just so many great storylines in the game.
Yeah.
Watching Stetson Bennett, a walk-on, as a Boston College fan who watched another walk-on fart all over our season this year, to watch one do really well was really cool. And he, no one had faith in him. And I thought they're going to make a movie about him at some point. They have to. I mean, again, going back to Boston College, we had that story here like 40 years ago with Doug Flutie. Mm-hmm. And, he was an under-recruited guy who took Boston College and beat Bama and all this stuff. This Bennett story is even bigger than that, in my opinion. Right. I know Flutie won the Heisman, but to win a national championship at a powerhouse school like that, it was just a cool story.
100%. He's the Matt Saracen of, college football. Like the guy who nobody wanted, but had to come save the day. And he did it on the biggest stage possible. And, that's why I had no empathy for people who were like, oh, well, Alabama didn't have their full roster, their best roster. I'm like, you guys got beat by a walk-on. Like, just accept it. It's okay. Like, God forbid, I'm so glad Jameson Williams is going to make a full recovery. Shout out to him. That sucks that, he tore his ACL. Like when you saw the play, you knew what was up.
Yeah.
It was brutal. And that sucks. But at the same time, next man up, as I'm looking at ACC rosters, my empathy, I don't have it for you because we don't have people that we can just pull in. Like Alabama, the guys who are the third on the depth chart can go start and, potentially win a Biletnikoff award, at wide receiver. Like that's just what they do. They reload. So you can't sit here and tell me on the biggest stage, you're not going to step up. That's what's required of you at a place like Alabama, period.
Yeah. And I it's interesting you bring that up because I was watching the game with my wife and we were watching the ESPN pregame and they were getting into all the, and we got to keep this PG, the stuff about Bryce Young being an underrated whatever. And she's like, wow, I didn't know that. I'm like, he was the number 2 rated recruit in the entire country. I don't know why ESPN keeps running with this, but it's a load of crap.
Yeah, right. I'm like,
exactly. 5-star, made $1 million before he walked on at Alabama. I mean, got onto Alabama's campus.
Yes.
Like, ESPN did no justice, like just running with that. No one saying anything about it because you had people like my wife who didn't know any better going, wow, that's a really interesting story. I'm like, it's a load of crap.
Really, and that's why
he believes.
Yeah.
It's what he believes, which is great for motivation for him.
Yeah.
But media companies should not be running that because it's not it's not true.
100%. You know what I mean? They thrive off tragedy over there at the 4-letter network. And it's so disappointing because there are so many, kids who did overcome Stetson Bennett, who have had these hurdles who nobody thought were considered and they made a name for themselves. But I mean, we're not about to sit here and say Jordan Davis was, just eating freaking salads all night. Like, obviously not. The boy is grits grown. Like we know he
I would just watch him
was meant for football.
They should have had a camera on him. Like he's
the episode of The Blind Side. Like he's that big. God. Like that's what that resonated for me. Like that's how huge he looked in comparison to other people. Like watching him stand next to Kirby Smart, I'm just like, this is a giant man among boys.
Yeah. And, he had that play that they eventually overturned where he just basically turned Bryce Young inside out.
Yeah.
And to see him against, and even when he lines up against guards or offensive tackles, he doesn't look like real. He doesn't look like he looks like a cartoon character out there, but he's real. And I don't know, I know he has his limitations and things like that. I've heard from different scouts that Jordan Davis is not he's not good against the pass, but some coach is going to figure out how to use him, and he's going to be a monster at the pro level.
You owe yourself to figure out how to use a guy like Jameson. Sorry, not Jameson, like Jordan Davis. But I do, it sucks that college football is over, and shout out to, again, the Georgia Bulldogs for pulling it off. But there are some teams in the ACC in the way too early college football rankings who are trying to find themselves in good position for next year. And I want to talk to my guy, AJ Black, about that. But first, I want to remind you guys about Built Bar. Okay, it is a new year, and I know you're trying to do a new you. So make sure that you get yourself nice and right as you're heading into this season. In 2022, you can get yourself really equipped by having a stack of Built Bars in the house. They are 100% real chocolate. They are not like your typical protein bar. They're not chalky, waxy, but maybe you can just get yourself a little delicious treat as you're on the go, hustling and bustling. You got 10 meetings a day. You need to grab a snack. Built Bar is right there for you. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs. Built Bar will get you right, okay? If you're not a huge fan of working out, you can at least eat something that tastes good. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, that's built.com, promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. If you are a fan of any of these ACC schools, I strongly encourage you to get right with this new incredible app, Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up by using promo code SCORE once they download. You can get on the App Store or Google Play. The cashback is added right to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code SCORE. That's SCORE now. Again, free app, Get Upside. We're rocking and rolling here with AJ Black. Locked On Boston College, covers the Eagles each and every day. Make sure you guys follow him in all of his content, and make sure you listen to Locked On ACC on YouTube, and you can listen anywhere you listen to podcasts. Now, we're talking about football here. We talked about the national championship game. Of course, there are big things there, but, we always want an ACC school to find their way. I would love to cover a college football playoff, series in terms of the finals, and the top 4. I would love to cover the national championship game. That is on my to-do list before I get out of this world. Now, will the NC State Wolfpack help me do it? Well, right now they're the top 8 team in the way too early poll, and I would love to get your thoughts, AJ, on the Wolfpack. Their starters expected return 8 on offense, 10 on defense, and some key guys looking to make themselves available. I mean, Peyton Wilson, not Peyton Wilson. Yes, Peyton Wilson. There it is. Sorry. Isaiah Moore. I'm reading all my guys. I keep forgetting. And Devin Leary, Derek Pitts Jr., all coming back. Tanner Engel making his decision to come back as well. What are you thinking about this team? And are you nervous, especially as a guy in the Atlantic Division, about this squad?
I am buying high on NC State next year. I think they're going to be really good.
Okay.
They're going to lose a little bit on the offensive. Amiza Mackey's leaving, and they got a couple of their offensive linemen leaving as well. But you bring a quarterback back like Devin Leary, you have Thayer Thomas there, and then you were without Peyton Wilson at linebacker last year. He's coming back. You're bringing back you're adding basically a potential ACC Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and another good linebacker next to him as well. I think NC State could be the team to beat in the ACC if they get all their ducks in a row. The fun thing about and the frustrating part about making prognostications this early is that a million things can change between now and then. And it only takes one injury, as we saw at Boston College this year, to completely torpedo a season, right?
Absolutely.
So, however, just this early, I'm a big fan of teams that have good depth in the ACC, and you saw it in the polls. A team like NC State, a team like Wake Forest, both teams that I think are just really nicely balanced and are going to be tough to beat. They're going to be tough outs, both of them.
I agree. I think that NC State they have to get out of their own way. So they're a team that if they just stay focused, if they stay, true to who they are in terms of just really being a team wanting to, beat up on everybody possible, especially on that defense, they're going to be tough. And Devin Leary is a guy who, kind of like Stetson Bennett, has felt like an underdog, not been the top quarterback in this, huge quarterback conference talked about often. So he's going to want to come in with the chip on his shoulder and not having to play the Holiday Bowl. They're already pissed off about that. They wasted their whole time out there, in San Diego? There it was. And I just think that they're a team that wants to prove that they're as good as their record is going to hopefully show. Now, will they have a challenger? Of course. They got the monkey of Clemson off their back, but number 11 Clemson right now is sitting and ready to get things rolling. Will DJ have a better year? That's the biggest question. Will Shipley and Kobe Pace be able to kind of keep up in the backfield? I would love to get your thoughts on the Tigers, and should we be feeling like maybe a college football playoffs is still in the midst for them, or maybe they're just going to be a decent team moving forward?
They're an interesting team, and I'm not ready to rule them out yet as a playoff contender, but I'm really, really interested to see what Dabo Swinney is going to be like this year without Brent Venables, because I think Clemson took off when they originally got him from Oklahoma. And they got him in to fix that defense. That's when they became the powerhouse of the ACC. Now, the hope is, for Clemson is that they're upgrading all their guys and giving them promotions within to get, but you don't get a Brent Venables every time you promote a guy within your program. So I'm interested to see how that defense looks. Of course, they're going to have a ton of stud guys coming, blue chips that are going to be able to hold down that defensive line like they've done for years. But that's one piece I'm interested in watching.
Yeah. What do you feel about Tony Elliott and his departure? And I know there was a lot of conversation about, him not necessarily being the best, offensive, and maybe that was a big of a snag of why, Clemson had taken a decrease, or what is it called?
Dive.
There you go. What do you think about, the new addition to, of course, hiring it internally? Can they figure it out? And, a lot of people talk about Dabo and his coaching style and the fact that, he's a great, delegator, but not necessarily a great play caller.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the interesting too. Like, that was my other piece I was thinking is, how are they going to be able to use DJ? Because DJ is not, unless he improves drastically on the offseason, he's a blue chip recruit that isn't playing like one. He has his positives and he has his negatives, but he's not like Justin Fields. He has his positives and his negatives, but he's not like Justin Fields who can do a million different things. Like, he's limited in certain things. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops, because if Clemson does take that next step, it's going to be up to him. He's going to be able to pull it out in big games and make those big throws. And, they won 10 games with him. They won 10 games this year. So even with an off year, I think they can do it. So
I don't know, AJ. I kept saying all season, he's going to have a breakout game. He's going to have a breakout game. And just never, truly, it never came.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it against Boston College where he if that was Phil Dracovic against him, they would have lost that game, but it wasn't.
Absolutely.
So, but it was his first year and guys take steps. I mean, look at what Stetson Bennett looked like last year. And we're gonna talk about Stetson Bennett this whole show.
It's okay.
But like, he took that huge step. DJ has all the talent in the world to do that. And with this offense, if this offensive coordinator can tailor his offense better around what DJ can and can't do, Clemson, that will dictate where Clemson goes. Because I think you're right. Like, I think the underlying story that no one talks about is Dabo puts together a great program, but it's all these coordinators that do everything for him. You know what I mean? Like, Brent Venables ran that defense, not Dabo, you know?
Yep. And he paid him handsomely to do it. And I think, there probably always was, the Oklahoma job that Brett was never going to leave, like, unless it was something he couldn't refuse. And Oklahoma clearly was one that he couldn't. And I think that Tony Elliott wanted the opportunity to try something new. And Virginia's a great place. It was a random way to get your first head coaching job because Bronco Mendenhall, up and left. But I think it's also a great opportunity. So does that change the mix of, the entire ACC? Well, that remains to be seen. But one school we cannot not talk about, because I think they're going to be the, arguably one of the teams where we saw what we could do this season. It's going to be very interesting to see how they kind of maybe repeat it going into next. So we're going to talk about Wake Forest here in just a bit. But guys, this is the putt to win the tournament. And if you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated financial information and software. To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial services to power your growth. 93% of surveyed businesses increase their visibility and control after upgrading to NetSuite. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite for the new year. NetSuite has a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/locked. Head to netsuite.com/locked for this special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. So we're wrapping up things here with AJ Black of Locked On Boston College. Make sure you check out all his content when it comes to covering the Eagles. Now, Wake Forest, a team that, strangely enough, is finding their way into the top 15. They are number 14, right? Last year, they were 11-3, 7-1 in the ACC. They had that head scratcher against UNC. But all things point to a return to greatness for the Demon Deacons. Can they do it twice? Would love to get you. You're just giving all the Atlantic Division thoughts today, AJ.
All right, so I'm gonna give a very unpopular opinion here and say that they're not gonna be that good this next year. And I think it was Ralph Russo. I apologize if I get the wrong writer. I think it was Ralph Russo of the Associated Press that was saying he expects Wake Forest to have a regress to the norm again next year because they had such a big year. And I can understand where he's coming from because Wake had a lot of luck. First of all, their offense was dynamic. That you can't take away from them. They were very, very good.
Sure.
Their defense was awful. It was I watched them against BC, but BC couldn't do anything. But against most of the teams, they really struggled to make stops. They, the game against Army where they let up like 60 points to Army. They had games up and down where they just could, Pittsburgh, they couldn't make stops here and there.
Yeah.
If other teams, they're going to watch that film of Wake Forest all off season. And offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators especially, if they can pick up things that they can stop Wake Forest with, because I don't think Sam Hartman is as dynamic. Like, he's good, he's very good, but he's not like Kenny Pickett unstoppable in terms of what he can do. And I think a good defensive coordinator, as we saw against Pitt, can knock him off his game. And they're going to watch that game film. And if they figure out little things that they can do to stop him, that defense, if they continue to play like they did this year, they're going to lose more games because it's just the luck and the things that they got, just like, being able to throw up 60 points. If they can't do that, they're going to lose those games next year.
I agree. I think Jaquarii Robertson leaving is going to be a huge loss, as well as Christian Beal-Smith. I think those are two, key components of a very high-flying offense. I think the books were cooked, as we love to come to find here on the ACC Locked On ACC podcast. They had who had they beaten, right? And they were beating teams in terms of like Louisville, who they probably should have lost to, and came down to one play. You had FSU, who it's not the normal FSU we're used to seeing. But, A.T. Perry this season, are they going to call more offensive passive interferences than they have usually done? Everyone knows your game now, right? It's one thing when you were getting away with it throughout the season. Eventually people caught on. But now they have a whole year to understand kind of how, especially even officiating, because I'm sure they take classes or something like that. I would hope. I don't know. Like last night, we got to give a shout out to the ACC refs. Everyone in America finally saw what we deal with every single week. And I'm just saying, like,
that it was the Bryce Young, it was the Stetson Bennett interception or where
it was the fumble or intentional grounding. We didn't know how to call it. ACC refs.
Yeah, that's what they got. But but I think you're right. Like, they're gonna watch film on this and on Wake Forest. And as you mentioned with A.T. Perry, that was there were games it was the bowl game I watched. I was like, man, he is good. Yeah. But when I watched him live, I was like, man, he just pushes off on everybody. Absolutely. And I can't believe they're not calling him on some of it, because the BC defenders, you'd watch the replays and he was like shoving off with two hands and like that kind of stuff, if like, as you said, like if the refs start to like review tape of the games from last year, they're going to say, oh, we missed a lot on this. We really should be more consistent with this next year.
Absolutely.
So I think there is, and I'm not saying that Wake's not going to be like a bowl game or bowl team or anything. I'm just saying I don't expect them to win 10 games. I don't think that's
I think they're the number 10 Carolina team that everyone's put on paper last year after watching them play Texas A&M. Like, we're like, ooh, like they had this great season, but I don't even know.
Yep.
I still don't know why people put Carolina, because they didn't even have the kind of season that they were supposed to. Anyway, I'm about to go on a tangent. I'm gonna get myself back. Okay. I think that at the end of the day, this is one of those like, oh, it looks shiny, new toy now, but let's maybe have thoughts, going into the fall. But hey, 3 Atlantic teams. I know Atlantic Division is going to be Atlantic anarchy. I feel for you guys. Like Coastal feels pretty decided with Pitt. I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. I think Pitt's going to win
absolutely
the Coastal next season, unless Tyler Van Dyke has one of those crazy good years and somebody figures out how to be a really good receiver for him in Miami. North Carolina's gonna have to figure out how to have a quarterback, which you can honestly go in the portal by now because everybody and their mama's there. So to me, it's Pitt and everybody else. And so you look at a championship game, is Clemson, NC State, or Wake Forest going to be there? Every game is going to matter. And not for nothing, Boston College definitely is in the conversation with Phil Jacoby and Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw who Brad, what's his name? Something Marcello from 247 Sports had BC in his top 25 early, and I'm being very bearish towards this. I'm not saying that they should be top 25. They're a 6-6 team.
Yeah,
I just need to see more. And a team like Boston College that they're losing 3 of their starting offensive linemen. That's a big deal.
That is a huge deal.
And they're not doing anything in the transfer portal. Jeff Hafley basically made that clear at the end of the season.
Okay.
Because of the super senior stuff, their roster is so bloated. They're not cutting players, but basically telling some of the seniors like, yeah, it's great you played for us for 5 years. Let's go into the transfer portal for you. So because they're just running out of space. Like CJ Lewis, who had a bunch of big catches for BC last year, he was a 5th year this year, entered the transfer portal. And my thought is there's a bunch of guys that are really good coming up after him, and they're like, you can have 1 more year of CJ Lewis or 3 years of this guy. Or if we block those guys again with Lewis, they're going to transfer. So I think that's something that is worth talking about in the entire country, because I think it's happening everywhere. But it was interesting to see at Boston College, like guys that you'd expect going into the portal for reasons that probably are very unique at this point.
Absolutely. AJ, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. I mean, listen, I think this is going to be a great off-season conversation in terms of we can make a lot of predictions here, which we love to do. So can you please remind folks, if they're not here with you on Wednesday, where they can find you and follow your work?
Yeah, I'm the editor publisher of BCBulletin.com, part of Sports Illustrated and Fan Nation Network. You can check out all my work on BC there. I talk about ACC sports, talk about everything there. I am the host of Locked On Boston College. This week, we've been talking about the transfer portal, which is interesting enough. So if you want to hear about my thoughts on where the portal's at and how Boston College is utilizing that, I've been talking about that. I've been talking basketball, women's basketball, recruiting, everything in between. You can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. And you can find my Twitter handle for the podcast at Locked On BC.
Lovely. And I always encourage everyone to listen to all of our ACC hosts, because they give you some of that really good content. Louisville, Georgia Tech, Pitt, all down the line. We got Locked On Blue Devils with JJ Jackson, Locked On Wolfpack with Kenton Gibbs, and so much more. Locked On the new Georgia Tech podcast with Bryce Kuhn. So many great guys there to listen to. Locked On Bets, like AJ mentioned at the top of the show, he might get himself a Locked On bet of the day in terms of where to go and just how to get there, the way too early predictions. So he's already looking into the future, but how to get that bad boy down. Make sure you guys follow us at Locked On ACC on Twitter. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can listen wherever you get podcasts. For Candace Cooper and AJ Black. Until next time.